What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I wanted to take a second look at the Koenigsegg CCGT versus the Renault R.S.01, which is probably one of the best touring cars in the game. Now I would say confidently that both of these cars are probably going to be in the top 5 overall in this class. They're just that good. And then we also have the Lamborghini Gallardo, which is probably one of my other favorite vehicles as well in the touring class, but personally I really haven't used this vehicle all that much now. I just haven't really been into driving this car, even though I know this thing is amazing, and we all can agree some of the AI that drive this vehicle are just way too fast for their own good. But I'm thinking about doing some type of comparison video with the Gallardo because this car also has a lot of potential and is probably one of the best cars to use in this class as well. Let me know if you guys would like to see something like that in the comments below. The other vehicle I think is going to deserve some spotlight now is going to be the recently added Nissan GT-R Nismo. I personally think this car is a lot of fun to use, and it's also a really good vehicle overall. It has great top speed, really good handling as well, so I think this car can definitely compete with the others. Now moving back over to the Koenigsegg CCGT, which personally I've been running this touring vehicle more than any of the other ones in the entire game. I personally love driving this car around. I think it's a blast. Now it's going to be a little bit different than the Renault, but I still find this car to be really good to use, and it's also really fun as well. I think having a great variety of vehicles we can choose from in this game is going to make it a lot more fun, and not only that, we can now use different vehicles as well and still compete with some of the better quote-unquote meta cars, which I think is going to make this a lot more fun, especially doing summits and all that, because you look at the leaderboards and it's always like one car or something. Now we can use other ones and still get a good time and be able to score into platinum and all that, which I think is awesome. Now obviously the other vehicle I'm going to be talking about is the Renault, which I would say everyone's probably has this car by now and or plans on getting it for that matter. Now this is literally one of my favorite touring vehicles in the game. Not only is this thing really fast, but it handles really well. It has great acceleration, which I really think is one of the best parts about it. The CCGT might struggle a bit in that aspect, which I'll get into more in the race testing with these cars here in a minute. But I have to admit one thing, I would choose either one of these cars for basically any type of event on the Crew 2. I really don't think you could go wrong with either one. Sure, the Renault might be a little bit better than the Koenigsegg in some ways, but I would say you could probably choose either one of these cars and still do really well in the summits, which I think is going to make this a lot more fun. Personally, I haven't used the Renault in a really long time, unless I have to. Now, if it's a no restriction, I have been running the CCGT for a long time, which I really like how the Koenigsegg feels over the Renault, even though this car is probably going to be a little bit better. But nonetheless, guys, let's go do a top speed run with both cars, and I do want to take both of them into a race to talk about this a little bit more. So starting off with the top speed of the Koenigsegg here. Now, when I first saw this car release a while ago, I was honestly really excited to drive it. For one, it's the only Koenigsegg we have in the touring class at the moment, which could change, but this car is also going to be really good as well and can easily compete with some of the better vehicles in this class at the moment. We all know the Renault has basically been on top for a really long time, and I think it's going to remain that way for a while because that car is definitely going to be better in some ways, which I'll get into that in the race here in a minute. Now, the top speed of the Koenigsegg here after going down this hill is going to be 263 miles an hour, which could easily compete with many of the other cars in the class as well. But with a car having a high top speed, I do think that's going to give it a big advantage because now the vehicles can compete in like the US Speed Tour races, and you can also get a better time without slipstreaming somebody, which I do think is going to make a big difference. But having vehicles with the exact same top speed or very close to each other, it's going to come down to other aspects whether one car is better than the other. But let's go take a look at the Renault's top speed right now. Now jumping into the Renault to find out what the top speed of this vehicle is compared to the Koenigsegg here. So jumping into this vehicle, the first thing I noticed immediately is going to be the way it accelerates. You can definitely tell in ways this car might be a little bit quicker than the other one, but nonetheless, let's see what the top speed of the Renault is. Now I did make a video about this car a really long time ago as well because I really do love how this car drives. It was my favorite back then. I think it's going to remain that even though I have been running the Koenigsegg on basically everything. So the Koenigsegg does 263 miles an hour. Let's see what the Renault does. So 260 right there. Let's go around this turn and hit it again. So 262 to 63. So it looks like they're going to have about the exact same top speed, basically making both of these cars insanely competitive to one another. Now let's go jump into an event with both vehicles and I'll talk about this a little bit more. So starting off with the first event here in the Koenigsegg, so back in the day when this car released, I was honestly insanely excited to see a Koenigsegg in the touring class. I was honestly waiting for this day to come, and now we finally have one of these vehicles we can actually run against like the Renault or the Lamborghini, and still get a really good time on many of the summits. Now, one of the biggest things I have noticed about this vehicle is it most likely will be a little bit slower than the Renault in some ways with how it might end up speeding up and or how the car shifts, but When I was actually testing it out in a lot of those, I was noticing that I could get around the same time as the Renault. I might be a little bit slower in some ways, but luckily you could still score really well and get a good time on them to stay in platinum and all that. So this car is definitely going to be a great option. One of the biggest things about the Koenigsegg that I really like is going to be the way this car handles. Now, if you guys have driven this car a good amount and then jumped into some of the other touring vehicles, you're probably going to immediately notice the difference of how this car is planted to the ground. Like, I feel like this thing literally sticks to the road. It has no issues going around turns. I do think the Nissan GT-R Nismo kind of feels the same way as well to me, which I do kind of like that car a lot as well. But I just really love how the Koenigsegg is going to sound when it shifts and the overall ability this car might have. I just pretty much have been running it. And to be honest, I've been kind of staying away from the quote-unquote meta vehicles as well, even though they're probably going to be great options because, you know, they're insanely good for that matter. I would prefer to try out other vehicles and try to get some of the other cars on the road here as well to really see what they can do, because I love seeing a bit of a variety when racing and all that and seeing more cars on the leaderboards. And I have been noticing the CCGT has really been popping up in the leaderboards a lot more often, which I think is awesome. Now, will you end up being a little bit slower than the Renault in some ways? That's most likely going to be a yes, but I still really do think this car could easily compete in many summits and or PvP if you guys wanted to. I personally love how the CCGT is, and with this car also being part of the handling update, I think is definitely going in the right direction with this vehicle. I mean, I love how this thing actually handles. I really haven't messed with the handling on it all that much, and if you guys wanted to jump into like a US Speed Tour event, I would say this car could probably easily do that as well. It has 263 miles an hour of top speed, which obviously the Renault is going to be the same there. Now, it really does depend on the driver a little bit as well, because you could probably beat some of the Renault times with this vehicle depending on how you hit the turns and how you might actually enter them, which I think is going to make this car a lot more fun to use overall. But that will basically do it for the Koenigsegg. I honestly love this car, guys, and I highly recommend trying out the CCGT if you have not. I personally am probably going to end up using this car in the future more than the other ones as well. But nonetheless, let's go jump into a race with the Renault right now. Now, jumping into the race here with the Renault, so one of the biggest things I noticed when jumping into this car compared to the Koenigsegg is the fact that you'll find yourself shifting a lot more if you are running manual. Now, I'm not going to lie, I normally sit in like second to third gear, sometimes even fourth in the beginning of an event, because I forget to shift the car as much as I really need to, because I honestly have not driven the Renault all that much. But that's not going to affect this car in any bad way at all. You'll just have to get used to how the transmission on this vehicle works compared to some of the others, because I did notice this thing does go through the gears very quickly, but that's going to be a positive for one, because this vehicle is going to be able to accelerate a lot faster than the others, which I have been noticing that right away. The Renault's honestly going to be one of the best cars in the class for a really long time to come. I mean, you can't go wrong with this vehicle, and I also find this car really entertaining to run, plus it has a pretty decent engine sound as well. You could even run something like this vehicle not only in summits and PvP, but also leveling up the class in general, which I think is going to make it really entertaining, because having a good overall vehicle is definitely going to help your experience a good amount. And if you guys have checked a lot of the leaderboards recently, you're probably noticing the Renault being in a lot of those on top, because this car is just that dang good. Now, one good thing like I was noticing when driving the Koenigsegg is the fact that both vehicles seem to be planted on the ground pretty decently, but I have been noticing that the Koenigsegg is going to have a little bit better of a handling feel to it. I would love to see the handling update on the Renault. I think that would be awesome, but then again, that might end up breaking this car a little bit more than it already is, because this car is going to end up being better, which I do think is going to mess things up in this class a little bit. I personally like seeing a bit of a variety in a lot of the classes here, and having other cars that can actually compete with some of the better meta vehicles I think is going to make this a lot more fun. Luckily, the Koenigsegg is going to be a great option for that. We also have the new GT-R Nismo, which I do like that car as well. Then obviously the Lamborghini Gallardo, which is a great vehicle in pretty much every class that it's in for that matter. So you really have a good amount of options you can choose from, but luckily we're going to have the king here, which is going to be the Renault. Let me know what you guys think about these cars in the comments below. Which one do you prefer to use more and why? I think the Koenigsegg and the R.S.01 are both going to be really fun cars to use, and you really can't go wrong with picking either one of these. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and here are the settings I'm currently running on both of these cars.